out the jibber jabber. Don't be babbling like a fool. Say what you got to say. That's all. Then shut your dang pie hole.
Well, folks, welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. It is Friday, and we are 0:30 out of the bunker. Woo! I tell you, folks, what a week it has been. We got to play our big game in Nintendo. And the world, folks, hasn't changed. The left-wing lunatics still think they own us like we're property. Unbelievable. Unbelievable what they think in their heads. Folks, they also think that because they want something, they should just get it. And that if they get enough votes, then that's really all that matters. Or if they can pretend that they have enough votes, that's all that matters. And it's all in their heads, folks. One of the big things in their heads, well, guns. We can just get rid of them. They completely bypass our culture and our tradition. They completely forget that there's a U.S. Constitution. And they're completely and totally 100% ignorant of the principles of self-defense and preservation of our own lives as not just an American principle, but one of humanity. You're allowed to defend yourself. And that includes the use of tools. Well, folks, what is going on here? Well, you can give up your rights, or rather, you can choose to pretend they're not there. You can't really give them up, but you can ignore the fact that there is a right. You can pretend that someone else is going to do the work for you, so you don't have to bother with it. But the reality is something quite different. Right? The Second Amendment is here to stay. It is not a government-created fiction. Right? The Second Amendment is real. It's very real. It is that we have the right to self-defense. It has been well established in our culture, our tradition, our laws, our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, and every human that has ever had to survive. Now, what is going on? Once again, and the state of Oregon is an example, they have a measure, a ballot. They had something that they voted on, and they think that because they voted on it, they have the right to overturn our culture, our laws, our traditions, our values. Folks, they think they can stop the will of the Creator. That is to say, we were created as beings who are empowered to protect themselves. The thing is they cannot make a law that we must obey. They can't do it with regard to dissolving and limiting our right to self-defense. They aren't even authorized to discuss it. Now, there is this belief that, well, with enough votes and a supermajority, you can make a constitutional amendment and take away something. Once again, if you choose to give it up and choose to pretend it's not there, then you can choose to live inside the fantasy that self-defense doesn't exist. Now, the government is doing many things that it pretends it has the authority to do. Right? And it is fabled also. That is to say, it's not grounded in reality. The idea that the government can tax you for breathing, or tell you to eat food or not eat food, or to eat bugs and not bugs, we're getting into some very scary ground. All of the other violations of our rights to life, liberty, which encompasses all freedoms. The concept of liberty is all of our freedoms. Pursuit of happiness, right? For decades and even centuries, people have wondered, they chose to use that word, pursuit of happiness. And it always seemed to be less important than property rights. Well, property rights, owning property, is also a freedom, a right that is well established in life, that people own what they possess, and they possess it because they own it. But this idea, pursuit of happiness, we have a right to be happy if we can make that for ourselves. Okay? Happiness, to be pleased with, to be comfortable with, to be satisfied with our freedoms, our liberties, our rights. More on the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit, the freedom of happiness. Are you very happy with what's going on? I am not very happy with what's going on with respect to the government stealing our rights. Now, back to the Second Amendment. Again, Oregon passed a law, a measure. The people voted and said, we want to limit the Second Amendment. It is well established in law, modern law, not ancient history, not some biblical principle, modern law. Courts, judges, intellectuals have ruled that the government may not restrict our rights. It has no authority to even attempt to do so because the Second Amendment stands in the gap, in the doorway. It holds the doorway open and it says, shall not be infringed. The word infringe is simple. It means to approach upon, to barely touch, to threaten with presence. The government shall not infringe, get close, threaten, nor touch our Second Amendment right. Yet that is precisely what they keep trying to do. Democrats will never, ever, ever quit, whether the authority is there or not. They don't care. They do not care. They will do what they want and keep trying, and they will make fiction. They will make lies. They will pretend they have the authority. They will manufacture ridiculous concepts and use cute sounding verbiage like common sense gun laws to appeal to the small minded, the weak minded, the shallow minded. Emotional appeal does not triumph over rock solid facts, evidence, and law. They're going to keep trying. They're going to keep pushing, and we have to keep fighting. The Second Amendment is here to stay unless we choose to abandon it. And as long as we choose to support it, the principles of self-defense are there for us to use as a tool against evil. And it truly is evil. Look at the power the government, the federal government, is trying to exert over everything, over states, over individuals. They want us to believe it is all powerful and that its authority supersedes all other authority. It does not. The federal government is restricted by the Second Amendment, and every single state in the Union has its own Second Amendment with the same words, meaning the same things, covering the same principles, because it is, folks, it is part of our republic. Without the Second Amendment, there is no republic. Without it, we exist in a perpetual state of fear and servitude to a government that could at any moment use force, incredible force, to compel obedience. Obedience without the ability to say no, folks, obedience without the ability to say no is slavery. The Second Amendment is here to stay. You can't crush it with rules, with lies, with laws. The Second Amendment is the embodiment. It is the words written. that already existed. The principle existed before the words were put on paper as a restriction for government, not permission for the people. Understand that again. The Second Amendment is a restriction on government, not permission for the people. The right to keep and bear arms, the right of the people as individuals to keep and bear arms, is not permission in the Constitution. It is a restriction on the federal government, and it is a restriction on state governments. State governments. No state. And if the state does not have power to restrict the Second Amendment, then neither does a county. Neither does a city. Neither does a homeowners association. Right? Unfreaking believable what these people think they have the right to do. They think they have the authority to do. It is not permissible, folks, for them to affect the Second Amendment. And for them to say, oh, well, it's just common sense. No common sense. Sorry. Well, it's a limitation on the capacity of a magazine. No, you don't. It doesn't say you can limit it. It says shall not be infringed. Do not get near. Don't touch. Do not remove. Don't affect. Don't restrict. That's what they're doing, though. That's what they wish to do. Oh, and oh, by the way, they're going to continue to use corporations. The government will use corporations, and corporations will use the government, and banks will do the same and try to punish people for exercising a right. And that, my friends, is unconstitutional, and it's also criminal. That's right. To take away a benefit or harm someone in order to punish them for exercising a right. I have the right to life. If a bank decides to kill me because they don't like it, they don't like me, they don't like my life, is that allowed? No, because they affected a right. I have the right to life. They can't take my life. They can't restrict my oxygen. They can't take away food, yet that's what they wish they could do to punish us, right, for daring to have our Second Amendment. Shall not be infringed by anybody. It's a right. The Second Amendment isn't permission. It is restriction on the federal government. I sure hope YouTube doesn't take this down or remove the sound. That would be awful. Chance favors the prepared mind. Go into this weekend knowing we have rights, and we won the election in 2022. We at least ousted and gained power, and you need to support your congressman. Write, call, smoke signal, carry pigeon, I don't care. Text, email, let them know we want our rights respected, not interfered with. All of our rights. Chance favors the prepared mind. Are you prepared for what's coming next? Godspeed. Semper Fi.